Hey, hello everyone. Once again, this is Dr. Joseph Capps coming back to you with our podcast and our YouTube channel, Dancing with the Darkness. If you're a first-time listener, we're so happy that you're here to check us out. And today we're going to talk about an ongoing theme that we've been talking about. This podcast and this channel is a raw, unfiltered account of living with CPTSD, how we got there from childhood, how we show up as an adult, all the nasty little things that go into making us who we are. But it's also a story of redemption and learning how to not just survive this, but to thrive. And so it's meant to be more than anything a message of hope for those of you listening, to know that you're not alone, that this is a brother and a sisterhood, and you're not alone out here. There's many of us that have had to deal with this. And I want to share my own experiences with you from an intimate point of view, and what I know 100% works because I've done it myself. Ultimately becoming strong enough to do this podcast and this YouTube channel to share my own vulnerabilities so that you may have a chance at having some healing yourselves. And it's a great validation and edification. So I just want to do some quick housekeeping. Please, if this message touches you today, please like or share to those that you think that this would be of value to. And as always, we ask you to subscribe. We're a very small channel, and we're just trying to get the information out. We're just trying to show up on the algorithm and on the feeds, because I know that there's a lot of people out there suffering, and if this is something that can help them, that's really the only goal that we have, is that we're trying to help folks. So today I want to, real quick, I want to also say thank you so much for our return listeners. We couldn't do this without you, so thank you so much. Today I want to talk about something that kind of piggybacks off of what we talked about last video. We were talking about covert abuse and how that shows up. And so I want to talk about some specific things that, I'm fairly certain that this is going to be very, very common with those of us with CPTSD. And I want to talk about these little subtle things in relationships that really just destroy us. And why are we so vulnerable to these things? Okay, so the point is, we see these things very common in relationships with those that have already been abused chronically, whether it's from their growing up developmentally with their parents, or they've been in a really toxic, bad, intimate relationship, or a domestic. We see that there is a pattern that unfortunately we continue to be in situations in our relationships where this type of abuse happens. And so I'm not going to normalize this, but I really want you to understand that if you're going through these things, it doesn't mean that something is wrong with you, okay? You are not the one that's defective. You are not the one that is subpar. All of these behaviors that other people have done to you do not define you, okay? And I'm telling you from a very personal place, a heartfelt place. If I tear up in this video, just deal with it, because you know what? Men, we need to learn how to cry anyway, because we're holding in too much crap. But this is a very intimate subject for me, because I am on the second half of my life. If not, I might be past the second half of my life. And we reach this stage where we look back on everything, and we have a lot of regret, and we have a lot of questions, woulda, shoulda, couldas, that our brain cannot, there's no way that our brain can actually justify these feelings or process these feelings. So it's just going to be a hamster wheel that we continue to run in. And so I want you to understand, not only do we need to understand how we got here, which is a lot of what we've been talking about with our videos, but I want you to understand why you're vulnerable to certain behaviors and how those behaviors keep you stuck. We've talked a lot about creating boundaries. We've talked a lot about trying to love yourself. We've talked a lot about faith, which is really important to me, because for me, I need to understand that there's something bigger than all of the things I went through. And I also need to understand that there's some sort of purpose behind that, because otherwise I cannot look back on my life and really justify it. Maybe I have done great things. I've served my country a total of 28 years, and and I've saved lives, and I've done the volunteer fireman thing, and I've done the chaplain thing, and the chief of chaplains thing, but you see, none of those things get to a place where they matter, and a lot of it has to do because of these behaviors, okay? And so we have a very hard time looking back on our life and justifying it and finding any edification and validation in it. Now, with my faith coming in and me believing that there's a higher purpose for the pain I've suffered, and that pain being doing this podcast, seeing clients, doing whatever I can to help people, and being able to pull out the intimate parts of myself, the vulnerabilities, the bad things that have happened to me, and being able to use those things to help other people has been the number one premise behind my healing. And, I had a client say something not too long ago, and they said, we have each other to get through this situation. They were talking about themselves and their spouse, and they're like, you're doing this all on your own. And how are you doing that? And I said, I'm not doing it on my own. I've got God. And so that's what we need to understand, is that we're never alone. God is always there, and it's an untapped resource many times for us. Okay? And I just had to throw that out there. And the reason why is I want to set that foundation today, because I'm going to talk about some things that are going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be uncomfortable for me to even read these things and discuss them with you, because it causes a visceral reaction. It causes emotional flashbacks. Okay? These are all things we've talked about in our past videos. Okay? So, trigger warning right now. If you don't feel like you're in an emotional place or a safe place to listen to some things that are probably happening to you that you're going to realize, and they're going to make you connect on an emotional level, then maybe this isn't the day that you listen to this video. Maybe you come back later and you listen to it, okay? Maybe you need to listen to some of my other videos first to get yourself fortified and in a stronger place to talk about this, okay? So we laid a foundation with covert abuse, okay? And this is going to lead to other subjects, and this is really imperative when we talk about people with complex post-traumatic stress, because it's from a developmental standpoint all the way up to adulthood. It's been conditioned. It's been something that it's our go-to reflexive way of living, thinking, and this causes physical, mental, and spiritual reactions within us. And guess what? The more gray hair you get, the more hair that you lose, the older you get. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It is harder. It's harder to deal with these things. We cannot carry the weight. It's no different from you. If you're 50 and you can still bench what you did when you're 20, good for you, okay? But I cannot. I am not going to put up 360 pounds anymore. It's just not going to happen, because I can't do it. I'm fairly strong for 50, but you know what? I need to accept reality that I'm older, and my joints and sarcopenia and all these things that happen, I'm not going to be able to do that. Well, it's very similar with our threshold emotionally and spiritually. And you need to understand this, okay? There's only so much that you can take. Your body is already reacting. The stress hormones are wrecking you completely, physically, mentally, and spiritually. You're having all these issues with your physical, mental, and spiritual health. And so you need to understand that our threshold is lower, and it doesn't make you weak, and it doesn't make you broken. We talked about last video using the term disorder. I don't like using that because it has a sense of permanence, and there is no permanence in anything. If cancer can go away with treatment and with God's power, if colds and viruses and all these things can go away, okay, we can also get rid of a lot of what happens with us with CPTSD, okay? There's only one thing you can't change, and that is your temperament and your genetics. And that's 52% of you, and we're going to have to live with that. But there's 48% of us that comes later, and a lot of it is a product of this unhealthy environment that we're going to talk about today. And those things we absolutely can change. We absolutely have some control over. We don't realize that we have the power that we have. It's all about decisions. It's all about boundaries. It's all about you making a stand and deciding for once in your life, God loves me. God created me. I have a purpose, and I don't deserve to be treated this way. I'm not treating others this way, and I don't deserve to be treated that way. This isn't a selfish thing. This is preservation. If you're going to do the job that God crafted you to do, then you're going to have to get to a place where you can at least like yourself enough to take care of yourself, because it's just like military. If I don't prep for a mission physically, mentally, and spiritually, I'm going to fail myself and I'm going to fail my team. And in those environments, somebody's going to get killed, especially as a leader. When I went from NCO to officer to, battalion level, with 400 people to look after and their families, I can't fail those people because of my own issues. Okay? So you either need to find the military way of sucking it up, or you need to make a decision that you're going to get healthy and show up for people the way that you need to, and that it's not selfish to give a crap about yourself. So we're going to run through 13 things, and I want your comments, I want your feedback, because if there's one of these things that we talk about that you want me to elaborate on further, something that is a real spur in your butt, then you let me know and we'll do it. Okay? We're going to set a foundation for some other videos with what we're talking about today. We're going to be talking about the reactive abuse that comes from these, and then we're going to talk about some other forms of emotional abuse where it looks like the person is showing up really, really healthy and really, really sweet and loving and all these things, and then you realize that they're manipulating you too. And how unhealthy that is, basically for you to be a yo-yo. Okay? Not good. So, if you're like me, most of us have become highly sensitive people. We have a lot of empathy, and there's a mixture here. There's a lot of science that says that empathy comes from suffering and from trauma, and I think that there's an element there, but I think that true empathy comes from God, and I back that up with the shortest scripture in the Bible. Jesus wept. Jesus was a perfect human being. He never sinned. He never did anything wrong, but he had raw emotion and pain inside his body just like we do, and he wept, he grieved, he felt these emotions. Okay, so guess what? It's okay and it's normal. And so I believe that some of us become what's called a pure empath like me, and we feel everything, and it's difficult. Okay, it's very difficult to feel everything because we have to figure out how to process it in a way that doesn't harm ourselves. So maybe you're like me and you enter into a room or you enter into a situation or you're in a relationship with someone and you just have this feeling, right? You have this, I call it dancing with the darkness. That's the name of this podcast, because there's something in you that's telling you that something is off. You're having a visceral reaction. You're having a fight, flight, freeze, or fawn reaction before anything even happens. Now, some of this we'll talk about later, I believe is spiritual warfare. And there's a demonic element to it. Absolutely. Okay? But let's talk about the scientific and psychological part of this. And basically, you're able to feel the energy in the room. You're able to feel that something's off. You have a discernment that something's just not right. And a lot of times this is going to happen in your intimate relationships and your closest relationships, because a lot of what we do as a trauma survivor is we wrap all of ourself, our physical, mental, and spiritual self, around the happiness of this other person. Okay, this becomes our identity. Our identity becomes, if I can make this person happy, provide for them, take care of them, and show up this way, then I'm not a failure. I'm not worthless. I'm not all of those things that my parents said that I was. I'm not that person that failed in all of these other relationships and have been hurt over and over and over again, right? So it can become an idol. It can become an identity, and it's not right, because a lot of times we end up in a situation where these things get flipped on us. These feelings that are true and are real and are discerning and were given to us by God himself get turned into something bad, and this is where the real trouble starts. So I've kind of taken some notes here, and I'm gonna go down these things so I stay structured and I don't get off on a rabbit trail, okay? Because it's dangerous to get off on a rabbit trail. We'll be here all day. So it's basically talking about this person has figured out all your vulnerabilities. They know who you are. They know how to play you. They know how to push your buttons. Okay, but they also know how to turn that into them being the victim. And the next video that we make, we're going to talk about reactive abuse and what that is. And a lot of these behaviors that I'm going to run down today in a brief way are going to lead into this reactive abuse. So some of these you've probably heard about, some of them you haven't, okay? And if you're in a relationship where all of this is happening, we've got a problem, okay? We've got a problem that we're going to have to face, okay? Honestly, 1 out of these 13 is not a good thing, and it needs to stop if you're going to have a healthy relationship. So the first one, this rings true because it probably happened with your parents. If you were psychologically or verbally abused by your parents, you grew up being constantly criticized or belittled, okay? And so this has become normal for you, and so now we end up in a relationship and it's the same thing. So with CPTSD, we're overachievers. Nothing is good enough. We have to be the best. We have to keep pushing ourselves. We have to keep raising the bar. And just like when we were a kid, you get A and B honor roll, taking honors classes. Why didn't you get straight A's? You get straight A's, well, why isn't your GPA a 5.0 instead of a 4.0? You get accepted to Virginia Tech early decision in your 11th grade year, and you're all excited about it. You blast 1,200 on the SAT. Why didn't you get a 1,400? How come you're not going to UVA or what? You know what I mean? And so it's a bar that you can never reach. It continues to get raised, and expectations continue to raise. And that's another thing that we're going to talk about. And so with us already being overachievers, with us already being our worst critic, this can be really catastrophic for us. Okay, this keeps us in a very depleted, low self-esteem state. Okay. And the abuser has a way of making it look like they're not really abusing you. This is that whole covert piece of it. They'll belittle you, and then they'll say, oh, well, I was just trying to give you constructive criticism. I was just trying to help you. I don't know why you're getting so upset. And see, your reaction to these behaviors is what we're talking about when we go into the reactive abuse category on the next video. Okay, so I want to set that foundation. Okay, so now maybe you react to being belittled. Maybe you have a strong reaction. Well, guess what? Now we're going to get the silent treatment, okay? Most of the time, if you're like me, you were not nurtured. You had a lot of abandonment, a lot of rejection your whole life, especially as a child from your caregivers. And so what do we want? We are starving for physical touch. We are starving for affirmation, words of affirmation. We're starving for intimacy and closeness and love. And so now I'm going to punish you. I'm going to give you the silent treatment, which totally wrecks your nervous system, because now we feel all of that empathic energy that something's wrong, but now we don't know what's wrong. And so we are literally going crazy within ourselves, and this person is sitting back like a puppeteer, and they're having a blast because they are completely and totally manipulating you at this point, okay? So not only will we do the silent treatment, but we'll also withhold affection. Like, you go hug this person and they're like, I'm not going to hug you back, right? Or they push you away or reject you, or I'm mad at you, I'm not going to give you affection. Okay, this is some unhealthy crap. Not good, okay? We walk away, that same little child that was not nurtured, abandoned, and treated like crap when we were little, okay? And I don't give a damn if you're 50, 60, 70 years old and you're watching this. If this is still going on, you cannot heal. That's it. Game over. You're not going to heal. We have to face that. So now this leads into another thing, number 3, triangulation. Now, triangulation is great, right? Because now we're going to bring in other people into our dispute, right? So maybe it's your mother-in-law or your father-in-law that gets involved, and they're always going to be team, whoever your spouse is, male or female, they're going to be on that team. I mean, that's their blood, that's the child. No matter what you do, they're on your team. So you're screwed. Triangulation, okay? Another painful thing is when they bring the children into it. This is a whole new level, because now we're not just abusing our spouse, but we're also technically abusing our children, because they should never be put in a place where they have to choose a team between mom and dad. Absolute nonsense. So we are teaching them to manipulate But we're also teaching them that it's okay to be manipulated, that this is how you show up in a relationship. So triangulation can be extremely dangerous because there's a hell of a ripple effect there. It's not just affecting you, it's affecting your children also. So we need to be aware of that, okay? This, goes into gaslighting, which we've talked about a lot. Gaslighting is basically your feelings, your opinions, they make you feel like you're nuts. They make you second guess yourself. Did I really say that? Did I really mean that? Did that really happen? So you start having this inner turmoil with yourself, especially when you get a little bit older like me, and I forget things. I'm not going to remember everything, especially with high stress vocations and all these other things. My brain has less capacity to absorb and deal with all of these details. Okay, so little things get forgotten and then they get turned into something catastrophic. And so we have to be very careful with the gaslighting. This leads into, I talked about real memory loss. Well, the abuser can have convenient memory loss. This happens a lot. Like, I don't remember saying that. I don't remember doing that. Or they'll play off of your memory loss. If you're sketchy on some details, we had that discussion. I told you. And then they become the victim, right? They're like, I'm so hurt because you don't remember what I said. You don't pay attention to me. You don't care about what I care about. Okay, so now that goes into another area that we're going to talk about in a minute, where you're in a constant state of guilt trip. Okay. Number 6, we talked about this briefly with number 1. Expectations always are changing. You just can't win. Even if you have a discussion / argument where this person expresses their needs, right? And then you work extra hard to provide these needs. Well, now the expectation changes again. Okay, so you did X, but you didn't do Y and Z. Or you do these things and I don't want you to do it because it's a checklist. You're just checking things off. I want you to really, really want to do it. Okay, and so then they start to judge and belittle what you're doing to try to meet their need. Okay, so it's a very unfortunate game that we're playing here. It's a toxic soup, and if you keep eating this soup, it's going to kill you. It really is, in one way or another. Okay, we need to understand that. Number 7, playing the martyr. We talked about that a little bit a minute ago. They are masters. The abusers are masters at becoming the victim. Okay, they can turn any situation, no matter how wrong they are, they can flip the script and make you the bad guy and they become the martyr. And they don't have to just do this within the moment. They can pull stuff up from the past to make you feel guilty about this mistake or that mistake or whatever it was. Or they'll bring in this whole new level of, look at what I've sacrificed for you. Look at what I've done for you. I did this all these years. I did this, and so they're just piling all this stuff on and they're making it look like you're the asshole and you've done everything wrong. And it's, with a person with CPTSD, we already have an inner critic. It really gets to us. Okay, I'm not going to lie to you. It really gets to you. And at the end of the day, it's all about our nervous system, and our sympathetic and parasympathetic are all jacked up at this point. Okay, and this affects us physically, mentally, and spiritually. And we need to understand that being in this constant state of dysfunction, we're just not going to be able to make it. And we're going to have to set some boundaries and change these things. You look at, and another thing with that number 7 is becoming the martyr. There's always an invisible debt. I have referred to this many times in my relationships where it felt like there was these scales and we were always trying to see who was even. It's always been that way. And I was taught that as a child. And so whenever anybody's done anything for me, I immediately feel like it has to be paid back or reciprocated or whatever. I can't have anything holding over my head. I can't owe anybody anything or be beholden to anybody. And then this ends up continuing on in our relationships. And the sad thing is that there's really nothing for you to pay back. There's a debt there that's never going to be paid, that you're never going to pay off. And so it's a constant sense of inferiority and guilt and shame. Okay, so this is difficult. Number 8. stopping your success. And this can look at like all kinds of different things. Okay, this can look like you starting to heal. This can look like you going back to school and deciding you want to do a different career. This can be a calling on your life that gives you purpose and validation and makes you feel good. And they can't stand for you to be in the limelight. They can't stand for the light to be shined on you, for you to be getting the attention. And so they'll do all kinds of things, whether it's on purpose or subtle, to destroy that success. It can be all kinds of little things that they do. You know, it could be as simple as I'm doing this video and somebody yanks the internet connection or something, or runs a vacuum in the background, or slams doors, or yells, or I mean, it can be little things like that that can look like somebody stealing your success. It can look like making you feel guilty for what you're doing, such as, hey, you're choosing that over me. And so there's a lot of behaviors there that we need to look for too. And I'm not going to say that they're not. Sometimes they're right. Sometimes we do get a hold of something, a passion area, and we do put it ahead of our intimate relationship or our kids. And, that's when we have to look in the mirror and reevaluate and fix ourselves. Okay. But that's not always the case. And a lot of times we see in abusive relationships that this person will sabotage, whether it's on purpose or it's not even something that they think about. It's just inherently something that they do. Jokes and teasing. And you know what? I've been guilty of this, so I'm not going to say I'm perfect because I've done this before. But a little jab or a little poke in a joking way that's a sensitive area for somebody. And then when they get upset, you're like, it was just a joke. What's wrong with you, right? And so that's abuse as well. We can't do that. We can't attack a sensitive area that that person has, or a vulnerability, and then they react, and then we make their reaction the problem. Okay, but that's what happens. This is a big one. Using your vulnerabilities against you. Okay. Now with CPTSD, this is probably the biggest thing ever, and the reason why is because we literally are conditioned and grow up with walls around us of protection for our inner child. We do absolutely everything to self-preserve and protect ourselves, and we don't trust anybody. We don't even trust ourselves. We have an inner and an outer critic that just beat us to death every single freaking day. And so when you do finally become vulnerable and you tell some of your secrets, or in order to be intimate with this person and to show them that you love them at a deeper level, you share some things, and that gets used against you in the future, this perhaps can be the most painful thing that ever happens to you. I know it has been with me. These are things that you already had to endure once, and now this person's going to bring them up. They're going to use them against you, and not only that, sometimes they weaponize it, and they use that as an excuse for you to be defective. Okay, this is why you act that way. You've never gotten over that, and you need to suck it up. And this is a really bad one. Okay, I'm gonna tell you right now, if you're in a relationship like that, please, please, please talk to someone. Please, please, please try to get some help and get the hell out of it. Save yourself years of pain. Trust me, years, decades of pain. I'm just telling you from a very personal place right now. Please talk to someone and get some help. CPTSD and that just doesn't work. Bad, bad, bad. Next one. Creating chaos and arguments. The one thing that we desperately want at the end of the day, especially with CPTSD, is a safe place. A place where we can have peace. Without that, we can't recharge, we can't lick our wounds, we can't strengthen and have the resiliency and the endurance to go back into the cruel world again for the next day and for all of the BS that's going to happen to us. So when a person starts causing chaos, a constant area of chaos, this starts affecting the very things that we need for our physical health. Okay, it causes appetite suppression, or either we purge or either we binge. It affects our sleep. It starts affecting all of the physical things that our body needs to recuperate, which in turn causes inflammation, which causes all kinds of sicknesses and illnesses. Okay, so this is not okay. We have to have a place of peace. You have to. You deserve a place of peace. If you go off into the world and you deal with all of the evil in the world, and you do what you have to do to provide, you do what you have to do to sacrifice, it's not selfish for you to want a safe place that's peaceful. Okay? A place where you can reflect, a place where you can pray, a place where you can talk to God, where you can try to work on your own healing, where you can try to work on your own health. This is not selfish. Most of these behaviors on here from the abuser make you feel like this is selfish. It gets twisted and turned all around. I know that you're tired, but think about that. Very important. Number 12, we get to the guilt trip, which I talked about a little bit earlier. Okay? Basically, it's a constant mastery of making you feel bad all the time. Okay? When we talk about in the next video the reactive abuse, we'll go into that further. But basically, your buttons get pushed, you have a reaction, a passionate reaction, and then those feelings get used against you, and then you feel guilt and shame for how you reacted, and so now we're in that hamster wheel again, and it's just a constant cycle of toxicity. It's a constant cycle of you desperately trying to crawl out of a hole and getting pushed back into the hole. We can't live this way. If guilt and shame rule your life, you're never going to have a life. I promise you that. I'm telling you in a very personal way. If every decision you make in life is based off of shame and guilt, you do not have a life. Okay? And then when people scream at you and they say, you're not happy, nothing can make you happy, you know what? They're right. You're not happy. You're miserable. You can't live in that. Your nervous system can't live in that. Okay? There has to be hope. You can't have all this darkness and not have light. They counteract each other. They're both necessary. So think about that. Okay? If you're listening to this right now and this is really hitting you at a visceral level, if you're feeling chills or you're having a physical reaction, write that down. I don't want you to feel bad about yourself. I don't want you to feel like there's something wrong with you. I want you to understand that you're in a bad environment and you deserve better. And that you have a purpose. And your purpose is not to be a whipping post or a victim or a target. It's not okay. God didn't create you for that. God doesn't put souls in infants in the womb just so that they can suffer. It doesn't work that way. You don't believe me? Read your Bible. Read the book of John. The whole book of John is about how much he loves us. 13, last one. We're going to call this provocative accusations. Now, think of the word provocative and think of the word accusations, okay? Here's the thing. This is when you get accused of doing things that are the complete and total contrast of who you are at the soul level. When we address moral wounds, and when we talk about moral wounds, okay, there's the moral wounds that, we suffer from going to war. There's moral wounds that we suffer from injustice when we see children trafficked or abused, okay? These are moral wounds because they counteract the very essence of who we are, who we were formed to be, the soul that lives within us. This is who we are, and we know this is right and this is wrong, and these go 100 million% against what we know is right. So imagine you're super passionate about a certain thing, or there's a line that you would just never cross in your life, like your integrity, for instance. When somebody accuses you otherwise, we have a very primal, passionate, defensive response. Because this is something that we believe very deeply in our core. This is something that defines us from the soul level. For me, it's my integrity, okay? It's, never being a person that would abuse or hurt a child. It's love of animals. It's when you get accused of those things, you have a very visceral, powerful reaction because it's just a line that you don't cross. Now, here's where the provocative accusation comes into effect, is that when we have this reaction, they use our reaction against us to say that we are manifesting our own guilt. Okay? You wouldn't have a reaction like that if I wasn't on to something. The way that you're reacting is telling me that you're guilty. So you see how this gets twisted. So now we don't just have a moral wound. We are in a sense of complete and total dysregulation and confusion at this point. And this is dangerous. I used to joke about how, I would Hulk smash things. When I was younger, it was all about anger. We've talked about this in past videos. And a lot of times with men, that's how we process everything. So here I am, and I'm like the Incredible Hulk, and I'm smashing stuff and throwing stuff around and raw, And I make the joke about how when the Hulk does it, he's incredible, but when I do it, I'm just a jerk. But the point is, we have these reactions like this when it comes to a passion area, okay? And it's something that goes against our deepest held beliefs that we value more than anything at the soul level. And when that gets turned against us and they try to say that we're manifesting guilt by having a reaction, it can be devastating, demoralizing, and can crush us as human beings. And so I don't want to leave you at the end of this video. We've talked about all these painful things, and now you're sitting here and you're just ruminating on all of the pile of crap or the swamp that you're swimming in, and you're like, now what the hell do I do? I'm going to tell you what I want you to do. I want you to journal these things. The things that I've talked about that have affected you today, that have given you a reaction, let's help our brain process them. Let's write down a few things. Whatever comes to mind. If it's a memory, if it's an emotional flashback, whatever it is, let's write it down. And when you're done writing that down, I want you to write down that you are not the problem. You are not the one who's broken. You are not the one who's defective, okay? The one who's wrong is the abuser or the abusers in your life. They are the ones that are wrong, not you. Please talk to someone. There's got to be someone in your life that you trust, that you value, that you can talk to. And if you're a person of faith, and even for those that maybe you're not a person of faith, maybe today is the day that you start. Because I'm telling you, the power that is at our fingertips to close our eyes and pray to God, the very entity that crafted every cell in your body and understands every single thing you've been through your entire life, that is the ultimate way to feel some peace. And He will do it. He will help you start to have some peace. He will enter people into your lives that maybe we've pushed away and thought they were crazy, but He will introduce people into your lives. He will introduce things into your life that are there to help you recover and to be validated and to turn your pain into purpose. So please don't close that door. There's absolutely hope. I am a living example of that. We'll talk about that in more videos. If you look all the way back to the beginning of the podcast, I talk about my childhood. And I'm very candid about it, okay? And so when you listen to the things that I've experienced, I think that I'm able to sit here without being hypocritical at all and give you some advice, because that's stuff that I've had to do myself. Not only is it stuff that I've had to do myself, but it's things that I've helped other people with, and I have seen them thrive in life. And so I'm fairly certain I know what I'm talking about when it comes to this. I'm coming at you today out of a place of love, out of a place of care, because as I struggle with these things, I look introspectively and then I look outward, and I think about how many of you out there are also experiencing these things, and how alone we can feel, and how demoralized we can feel, and how we dance with that darkness, and sometimes it gets ahead of us and we can make some really bad decisions all the way up to taking our own lives. And I don't want that for any single person that listens to this podcast today, because you have purpose. Everything you've been through can be used in a way that can help someone else and give them hope. And it is an unbelievable feeling to do that, to know that if I have saved this person 10, 20, 30 more years of pain just by sharing my experiences and helping them understand that you can overcome this and you're not alone, it is a precious gift. If we can help you at CAPS Christian Counseling, please comment, please contact me. I will help you find someone in your area. If I can't see you, I'm here to help. I care about you because we literally are brothers and sisters, and we understand things about each other. It's very intimate that no one else will, because we've experienced them. I want you to not just survive, I want you to thrive. Thank you so much for listening to the video today. If it's reached you on an emotional level, if it's spoken to your heart, please do us a favor, like, share with people, and get the word out. We're just trying to help folks. Thank you so much. Until next time, this is Dr. Joseph Capps with Dancing with the Darkness. God bless.